2023.
And we're off. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes, I am present.
Mr. Hollinshead? Here. Mr. Valencia?
And we're off.
Mrs. Flores?
Here.
Mr. Lara?
Okay, we have our introduction of our interpreters tonight. Sandra? She's here there, she over there? All right, real good. Carranza is here and Vangelis Garcia. Thank you both for being with us. And our greeter and our supporter is Monique Cardona. Thank you for doing that. We'll go ahead and go with the flag salute. If everybody would please stand. Attention and salute, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In our closed session, topics on labor negotiations for both parties and public employee information was shared. Not a lot, but just a little bit of information here and there. As we move through our next process here, we have a calendar of upcoming meetings. We have August 11th, first day of school. Betty is out buying new shoes or buying lunch stuff or getting ready to rock and roll. August 24th, we will have our board study session. Moving us into public comment period session. Public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each, 450 words per person, subject, and 15 minutes total each topic. If an answer to specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration in responding in writing. We have comments on agenda items?
No public comments at this time.
Nada. Okay, comments on non-agenda items? Nada, just to make sure. Thank you. Moving to approval of agenda as presented, we did pull.
Item. What are the items?
I'm sorry?
What are the items that were?
We did pull the items for another time, which would be action item 7G, approval of job description, that has been pulled. And the discussion item that has been pulled is 8B, first reading, revised policy.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
For a second. Thank you. Hollinshead have approved, made a motion, and we have a second by Mrs. Cordero.
Roll call vote.
Roll call, thank you.
Mrs. Cordero?
Roll call, says roll call right there.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia? Aye. Mr. Lara's absent.
And on consent agenda, please.
Approve the consent agenda as presented.
And I will second.
Same, we have Mr. Hollinshead motion and approve the second, Ms. Cordero. Roll call.
Can I say one thing on the consent?
Sure.
Thanks, Matt and Javier, for all the information on the change orders.
Thank you. And now on to roll call, please.
Yes. Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia? Aye. Mrs. Flores?
Aye. Moving on to our action items. Have our action item A, Consolidated application for funding categorical aid programs and local control accountability plan federal addendum.
Yeah, we'll have Ms. Dutra present that.
Good evening, board members. So excited tonight to have Dr. Sam Humphrey presenting to you for his first time and also celebrating his birthday with us tonight.
Happy
What
birthday.
better way to
dear.
celebrate? Yeah.
We planned that very
I
carefully,
know. Not every district does that.
right?
You know?
Bless your heart.
We'll do our best to make
Thank
it a
you.
happy one.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, board. Superintendent Dr. McDovey, our education partners. Again, Sam Humphrey, I'm the Director of Plan Alignment. And this evening, we will be reviewing the annual consolidated application and LCAP federal addendum update. This is an annual procedure that you might be familiar with. The information is also included in your board packet. Just as a review, our Every Student Succeeds Act requires districts to complete a district plan that ensures all students receive a high quality education that meets challenging state academic standards. That LCAP, with the input of our education partners, is our district's plan that includes the goals, actions, and resources to improve student achievement. The application, called the CON app, is what serves as our access to the federal funds with the LCAP that was approved by our board at the end of last school year. Federal programs are broken into 4 entitlements. To access those federally funded programs, Title I, improving basic programs. Title II, that's our building systems of support. Title III, language instruction for English learners and immigrant students. And finally, Title IV, student support and academic enrichment grants. CDE applies a funding formula based upon annual census data, the number of identified English learner students, and the annual allocation the state receives from the U.S. Department of Education to guide our allocations for each school system within the state. For this upcoming 22-23 school year, you'll see that Santa Maria Bonita School District saw somewhat level funding in its initial allocations compared to this exact time last year. The federal programs are the 4 you can see here as stepping stones of those sources. All those federal programs target support for specific student groups, targeting Title I, the most open, which is our students qualifying for Title I through low income status. Title III gets more specific with our English learner only students, and more restrictive in those students and immigrant only for Title III. IMM, and then finally, Title I Part C migrant is specifically for students identified as migrant. Those identifications are provided based on information gathered at the time of registration. A snapshot of the federal programs and actions and services that were specified in the approved LCAP include Title I, ensuring all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education and reach minimum proficiency. Some of the actions and services we include there range everything from our school-wide programs to staffing, such as instructional coaches and our homeless foster youth liaisons. Putting our Title II money to work through building systems of support, assisting and improving teacher and administrator quality through our professional development and other activities. That money is being spent on items such as our teachers on special assignment, or TOTAs, as well as professional learning opportunities. Our Title III funding specific to our English learner and immigrant students is dedicated towards assisting English learner students to achieve high levels in academic subjects. Such actions and services that we provided through this funding include supplemental support materials for our newcomer students, as well as parent education that's provided through the district. And then finally, Title IV, our student support and academic enrichment grants provide everything with our students ensuring an access to a well-rounded education. We've dedicated additional school library materials and parent education, as well as items such as data analysis, instruments, and survey software. This is our federally funded programs that we're asking for recommendations so we can have access to those funds for the upcoming school year. Any questions I can help you out with?
Board members, any questions? I'll go to John and then I'll go to Ricardo.
Excuse me, on the parent education piece, I was driving through, or was in Ventura last weekend, a weekend before last, and they have a defined parent education center. Is there some, is a lot of this is site specific or listed for, or dedicated to the sites. Do we have any kind of a formative process that we're going through either with the high school district or Hancock, or we're trying to actually get a less and get some place that's centralized for parent education rather than going?
Yeah, I'd have to defer to Dr. Castillo Schiffer, who runs our family engagement program, the Potential Family Service Center. And then we will be building our new LCAP update for this upcoming year. So our first meeting is on September 28th. That's, of course, open to everybody.
Because this has been something we've talked about a lot in most years past, but it continues to be kind of vague and ill-defined. So sorry about my voice. It ends up being site and then very, very highly variable and not very uniform.
Around, you had mentioned something about when students register or the parents register, the guardians, that's when they identify, I think, whether they're EL or migrant, correct? Is there ever any issues with self-identification? For example, some families, if they're undocumented, might be, afraid, right, to self-identify. So have we encountered any of those challenges? And if so, how have we addressed them?
I'm not sure on the enrollment front of if there's been families that have misidentified themselves, if the instances on that, but we can follow up with that.
Yeah, I think, assuring our families, right? Like the census would be an example, right? So some families are afraid to self-identify, but, once there's education around the fact that that's not connected, right, to immigration services, right, that's a separate thing, families are more, willing to provide data. Otherwise, it's really difficult for our families to do so. So trying to make sure that they feel comfortable so that we know the numbers of our students, right? And how many are migrant and emerging multilingual learners, AKA English learners, et cetera, so that we have the adequate funding and things like that to support them.
Yeah, and ensuring our front office staff, community liaisons, like those staff members, they're there to assist families so they're not trying to fill out those forms in a vacuum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other questions? Other clarifications?
I'll move that we approve the 2022-2023 consolidated application for funding categorical aid programs and local control accountability plan federal addendum as presented.
I second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Valencia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Carry. On to item 7B.
Just a comment in looking at the allocations.
On the previous one or the next?
Right. The application or the allocations have all decreased at a time when it seems like the federal government has done nothing but throw money at us. So I'm kind of taken aback by that.
Okay. 7B, award of RFP 5234, shelf, stable fruit and vegetable teacher.
Thank you very much, Ms. Flores. Tonight we have McKnight, Carlos Murta to talk about the process for identifying the best.
I'm not sure if
Am I not getting close enough for the microphone?
The Zoom YouTube.
We do have Patricia McKnight and Carlos Murta to speak with us tonight about the process for identifying the highest scoring vendor for our vegetable and fruit juice offerings at our school site.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dr. Macbeth
cabinet. This is an RFP that we issued out for our shelf-stable fruit and vegetable juice. As we discussed in previous board meetings, when we do an RFP, it's not necessarily awarded to the lowest bid, and this is a prime example of the process not being awarded to the lowest bid. It is the highest rank. We had 5 prospective proposers download the RFP solicitation documents, and 4 proposals were received and opened on June 17th. We have an evaluation committee of 3 district staff members that was formed to evaluate all of the proposals. As you can see, Apple and Eve was the lowest cost at $133,290. Apple and Eve is the manufacturer of this juice. And Cisco, Ventura, and Gold Star and ePalette are all distributors. One of the key factors and reasons why Cisco and Gold Star both scored higher is because they do have the capability to accept smaller, well, actually not smaller loads. They actually take the full truckload in and they store it for us. And then they will issue out what we need. Going directly through Apple and Eve requires that the district take in full truckloads of juice, and then we have to store it. And our warehouse space is limited. So in the committee's evaluation, they took that into consideration, that even though it's at a higher cost, it's at a better benefit to the district and our best interest to go ahead and look at those other vendors to provide that service. So Cisco Ventura's proposal meets all of the requirements as outlined in the RFP documents. They are the highest ranked proposer. They're deemed responsive, and staff is recommending the award of RFP 5034, shelf-stable fruit and vegetable juice, awarded to Ventura. This will be a 2-year, it'll be a total of 3 years. It's 1 initial year with 2 optional 1-year renewals. Questions?
Questions? Yes, sir.
My question is it the exact same product between these 4 bidders, if you will?
Yes.
And if so, is it possible to also receive the nutritional value of these products? That's something that I spoke with, Dr. McDuffie about. Do we have that data available?
Good evening, board. Carlos Murta, Food Service Coordinator. Yes, we do have it available, and I easy to share as of tonight. It is a product that the manufacturer specializes on K-12 products. So the juice that they produce is mostly for school districts. It is 100% juice. It is targeted to the supper or after school programs. The reason shelf stable means that it does not need to be refrigerated. The lack of food service staff at those programs and just a little more practical and flexibility to provide an additional drinking choice besides milk. That's the reason why we're going with the shelf-stable juices. This brand is one of the few brands that offer 100% vegetable, meaning that the first 2 ingredients are either water or the actual vegetable. Instead of we avoid any high fructose or any other sugar, high sugar content juices for that juice. And they also provide the portions which are just perfect for the supper needs that we have. Somehow tonight, I will email the information on nutritionals to Dr. McDuffie, and you can share with the board.
Excellent. And thank you for that information. And part of the reason why I'm also asking is because I did receive a question from a community member around, the nutritional value of our food. I believe an article came out in the Santa Maria Times. And so they sent me the link and I hadn't even seen the article. And so there's definitely an interest, right, in the community of what our children are eating and making sure that our youth have alternatives, if you will, right? If they're not used to certain products. I know that you all discussed that at one of our last board meetings, the importance of providing variety, right? So that our students don't get bored of the same food, but also the concern being, well, what is the nutritional value of those products? And so I'm really excited to work with the board and all of you to see what we can do, because I know that's definitely an area of concern for our community.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for your thoroughness. Appreciate it.
I'll move to approve the award of a contract for RFP 5234, shelf-stable fruit and vegetable juice to Cisco Ventura Incorporated as presented.
I thought you seconded it.
Can I have a second?
Oh,
please?
sure.
Thank you.
You're encouraging a second. Oh, I'll do that.
Okay, motion is made by Mrs. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Hollins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have award of RFP 5223, fresh produce.
Thank you very much. We have the same team to speak on this item board as well.
Thank you.
This RFP calls for fresh produce to be delivered district-wide in support of the district services program. 3 prospective proposers downloaded the RFP solicitation documents, and 2 proposals were received and opened on June 17th. Evaluation committee of 3 district staff members was formed to evaluate and score all of the proposals. United Foods cost proposal included 47 of the 91 produce items. Of those 47, they were low bid on 4. So that's why you're seeing the score, there being such a difference in the score. A lot of that is the cost component. The cost is scored at 50 points. And with United Foods only having low bid on 4 items, that's why their scoring is so low.
Oh, that makes sense.
And the Berryman's proposal, they included all 91 produce items. With the 4 items that are low, there's nothing that prohibits Carlos from Food Services from ordering those 4 items from United Foods if they so choose. But it's definitely under the bid limit and would not require a separate contract. So we are recommending that the Berryman be awarded a contract for this RFP in the amount of $857,400. Upon execution of a signed agreement. This, as well as the other, is a potential of 3 years, so it'll be 1 year with optional 1-year renewal.
91 different produce items.
We try and mix it up a little bit.
Thank you for that. I think the kids appreciate
I don't know that I could name more than 50 or 60.
We are pushing
Just
for
for
the,
United Foods.
yes, we are pushing for the food bars to come back after
Oh, good.
waited 2-3 years that we haven't had it due
Yeah.
to obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So we're pushing for the food bars salad bars to be rolled out this year. And in order to provide us a great selection, a colorful selection for those bars, we are planning to utilize a lot of those 91 products. Now, these are distributors meaning that we can go to the same vendor for multiple products. We still have a focus this year to deal directly with farmers on a specific item. We do not need a bid process for that. Under USDA guidelines, we're able to deal directly with them without having to do any bids.
That's encouraging.
It is.
Very encouraging.
I'm just really awestruck at the 91 different products. I'm impressed in a positive way. So I will move to approve the
Let me see if
award.
there's any questions before we move to that, please, in regards to what was presented. Go ahead, sir.
Did you mention that if United Foods, did I understand this correctly, that if they have a product at a lower price than the Berryman Inc., we have the capacity to order from them that specific product? Is that correct?
They were low on celery, tomatoes, lettuce, and mixed. So services certainly order those items from them.
it is a new vendor for us, so there's nothing, even though we recommend extending the contract to the Berryman, I will probably do the courtesy to reach out to them and just learn more about it, because we don't know exactly what their capabilities, if their truck conditions to deliver to each one of the school sites. So that's probably a vendor that I would like to establish a connection with, but at this time we're recommending their Berryman, because we know their capabilities and they have a lot better selection for our salad bars.
And can you clarify a little bit more the difference, why there's such a big difference between the plus 800K versus the plus 300K? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? I was a little bit unclear on why the big difference of the price.
It's because they only bid on 41 of the 90.
So because they only have half the produce that we requested?
Yeah. They were only low on, out of those 41 that on the.
Yes, I can tell you probably by these numbers, one of the most common vegetables that we use is salad, chopped salad or different types of salads. They're probably, they provided a better price on the salad than the other pricing for the other products. Again, I will probably reach out to work with them in the future, but for this year, I recommend going with the Berryman.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion, please.
I'll move to approve the award of a contract for RFP number 5223, Fresh Produce to the Berryman Incorporated, as presented.
I'll second.
It's been made by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Mr. Valencia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item D, award of RFD 5236, Security Guard Services. Mr. Beecher?
Thank you very much. Patricia McKnight also will join us tonight to talk about this, but teaming with Dr. Zimmerman address this particular request for services.
This request for proposal, I call for qualified firms to provide proposals for unarmed security guard services at each of the district's 4 junior high school campuses. The scope of work requires 2 unarmed security guards per site and 2 rotating unarmed security supervisors, as well as 2 patrol vehicles.
Thank you.
Thank you. What mighty words. The lights came on with that one.
District staff prepared the specifications. 21 prospective proposers downloaded the RFP documents and 4 proposals were received and opened. An evaluation committee consisting of 3 district staff members was formed to evaluate and score the Miller Security and Investigations Incorporated, doing business as Bomar Security and Investigations Incorporated, is the highest ranked firm at 90 points. With a 6-month cost of $251,808. You're going to see there's quite a bit of cost difference between Miller Security and Quest, the next lowest cost. Part of the reason that you see that when we evaluated the cost proposal, when we go out for an RFP, one of the things we do is we do ask them to come back with their solution. We give them the criteria for the cost proposal, and then they come back with their solution for that cost proposal. In Miller Security, in their cost proposal solution, they included, for their supervisors, they included one at no additional cost. So there was a cost savings there. That's pretty substantial. And then the second thing that they did in their solution was that they are including the vehicle cost in their hourly rate for their supervisors. So there's a cost savings there. To where Quest, they had a cost for the vehicles, and then of course they had the cost for the 2 supervisors. So that's where you're seeing the main difference. And then of course there's a little bit of difference as well in their hourly rates that they proposed for their guards as well as their supervisors. So that's why you're seeing a big difference in that 6-month cost. And cost did play a big part in the scoring for this. When we look at the technical scores, Miller Security, their technical score from the evaluation committee was 40, and then they did receive all 50 for the cost points. They were the lowest cost. And then Quest received 48 in the technical points and then 36 for cost. So it did make quite a bit of difference, that cost component in this case. Miller Security Investigations, doing business as Bomar, their proposal does meet all the requirements as outlined in the RFP documents. They are the highest ranked proposer, and staff is recommending awarding a contract for RFP 5036 to Miller and Security and Investigation Incorporated, doing business as Bomar Security and Investigation Incorporated.
I'm not sure this is pertinent, but are they the ones that provided the security last year?
No, they are not.
Oh.
Did that company make a bid?
They did. They are the second. Yeah. So that was Quest.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I guess for me, the question is how we can, if we have or are proposing to have indicators as to the efficacy of having these guys on campus, like, some sense of monitoring change either in discipline, looking at panorama, looking at healthy kids, some of those things to see what the efficacy is in spending these dollars, just like we do with any other dollars, some kind of measures of that. And then I know when we've discussed having a police presence on campus in the past, it's been strictly with the junior highs, but one of the things that I was hoping we could do now with Chief Snyder is try to establish some kind of a rapport with the police department at the lower grades and maybe at the junior highs, just so that there's an interface there that's positive, in a communication, a community kind of sense, so that we can establish relationships outside of a punitive or fearful confrontational, type of situation or state. Because I think if we're going to, have the guard presence, that's a good thing. But I think part of the reason we were talked about police in the past was to establish a different kind of relationship. And I think Chief Snyder might be open to that kind of stuff.
Mr. Holland said, just to speak on that point, I did meet with Chief Schneider last week, and we had a really good meeting. We didn't talk specifically about that piece with the elementary schools, but I think is a key piece for us to be able to build positive relationships. As far as for security, that's something that we're looking really for this year, but as a long-term solution to be able to have safety intervention folks that are part of our district and who are employed by us, who can really work with our students and be more preventive than anything else. And so we'll be looking for that as a long-range solution to some of the supervision that we're getting from security guards here.
Thank you.
Zimmerman, were you going to say something prior? Okay, Mr. Valencia?
I noticed that the Miller Security, it looks like they're a local company. Are they based here out of Santa Maria? And if so, did that impact in any way the bid?
Not.
So when we look at bids, we don't necessarily prioritize, if you will, local folks or keep that as a factor in the scoring?
Not always. Not always. With this, we're looking at, this is a service that is specialized, and in order to capture as much competition as we can, we have to cast that net out. So that's one of the reasons that we use Planet Bids. We're pretty fortunate. Most of our contracts go to local vendors. On occasion, it is out of the area.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever possible, it's nice to have, support our local businesses who are local taxpayers and therefore circulate those dollars into our community. Of course, assuming that they actually have a competitive bid, not just for the sake of local, but I think that is an important factor that I think we should definitely be considering when we look at the bidding process. A question that I have is, to what extent does the Miller Security Company have a record or evidence of culturally proficient practices? So in other words, do they have some type of proven record of dealing with our students in a just manner, right? Or have there been, various complaints? Do they receive any bias training, for example, things like that?
So some of the training that is mandatory, we do have security guards on our campuses. They have to do SB 1626 certification, which deals with items such as roles and responsibilities, law and liability, security awareness, and educational environment, and how to interact with students there. Mediation, conflict resolution. They also have training for disasters and emergencies, and also dynamics of student behavior. And after receiving this training, they must take a written exam and be able to pass that exam. They also need to be CPR certified. So those are the training components. From a personal experience, have I had any complaints with Belmar? No. When I was a principal, as well as the director and overseeing the 8th grade ceremonies at the end of the year, we usually contract with Belmar. There were not complaints about them treating folks unfairly or unjust. And then I'll let Patricia do the rest of that.
As a follow-up,
yes.
I know we had security at our junior high campuses last year. What was the feedback from the principals in terms of their effectiveness, how they interacted and related with students, and that kind of thing?
So after we started, after we started the school year, we met with principals to get feedback real quickly to see how things were going, to make sure things were going the right direction. And we got very positive feedback. And it was the firm that came on quickly established relationships with those students, that sometimes shut down with other staff members or coming up to them and talking to them. I encountered one of my ex-students at Arianas Junior High. He was working out there, so they were able to relate with the kids. And that was something that when we met with the security firm and the principals before coming on, that was something that we really stress, is they're there to build relationships with kids, to be a positive influence on campus, and to assist everybody and promote a positive climate on campus.
A follow-up question that I have is, do we know what percentage of the security guards are bilingual or trilingual? And if not, can we receive that information?
Yes, so I did speak with Bomar, and I did ask them if they would be recruiting for these positions, or if they had staff already in place. And they did say they would be recruiting these positions, so I do not have that information at this time. I did share with them that we would like to know on those staff members if they are bilingual or multilingual. They did mention they do have one employee in mind, and that employee is bilingual. So the rest of them, I am not sure at this point, but we certainly can get back to you once we have that information.
Absolutely. Please let them know that that's definitely a priority. I mean, as a high school teacher, I've seen situations where we have some wonderful, security staff at our school. But if that security staff member doesn't speak the language of the student, we know that many of our students, speak many different languages, Arabic, Spanish being a predominant language, indigenous languages. It's going to make the situation so much more difficult, right? If our staff cannot communicate with our students or our families. So it's not just a moral imperative, but it's like a safety imperative for them to be able to have the language skills to meet the needs of our kids. And so, yeah, please let them know that that's definitely a priority area. And then also, you were mentioning some of the trainings that they received, Dr. Zimmerman, the CPR, and the mediation. I'm really glad to hear that the emphasis is on relationship building, because we know that when those relationships are done effectively, they're not perceived as, security guards, which even the terminology itself, I would appreciate speaking to Dr. McDuffie about this. Even that term, right, feels already for some students like there's a us versus them type of approach or a imposed authority. But these actually folks, when they do their jobs well, which many of them do, they actually communicate more than with our own teachers sometimes. And for me, that's a win. If one of my students doesn't feel comfortable speaking with me, but they do with one of our quote unquote security guards, that's a win, absolutely. So in that spirit, do we have any type of racial bias training? Do you know if they go through any of that? And the reason why I ask is because there's a substantial data around double standards when it comes to African-American students and Latino students. They're more likely to often be kicked out of the classroom for a similar offense compared to a white student. They're more likely to be suspended for a similar offense. And so we know that this is data, this is confirmed with research. And so do those security members receive any of that type of racial bias training so that they're cognizant of those dynamics?
I would have to dig in a little bit deeper on this SB 1626 to see if that is included, but I can definitely look into that, see if it is included or if it's not.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would think they don't, but please look into that, Mr. Zimmerman. I appreciate it. And I would say that because of the fact that they're not associated necessarily with the school, and the very reason why, if they were our employees and we brought them on as intervention or safety interventionists, we would be able to give them what our overall goal, our vision, our mission, and also provide them with the training that we want them to have. So go ahead and look into that. But I would say they probably don't have that for the security guards. Just I don't know, maybe.
And I think it's because it's such a new perspective in terms of having this support. I've seen a couple of them in quiet action with students. I've been on campus at El Camino and they're speaking Spanish, to our students. I don't think it was part of the maybe job description, but we do have some bilinguals out there because I heard them and just the interaction and on a couple of instances when we had lockdowns and things. You know how you sometimes are lucky enough to be there when things happen? You kind of see things in action. And I did see some very positive things happening culturally too with our students. And I do have to say that because fortunate enough, be there to see it is sharing it, and saying, yeah, we need a little bit more. We need a lot more on some, but I did see it happen. And it being such a new element on campuses, a couple of the students who were speaking with the individual security individuals were speaking in Spanish. And it was kind of a nice thing to see. And we'll make sure we really keep that at the forefront. So thank you for the information. Any other questions? With that being said, is there a motion?
I'll motion that the Board of Education approve the award of a contract for RFP number 5236, Security Guard Services to Miller Security and Investigation, Inc., DBA Bowmore Security and Investigation, Inc., as presented.
Second?
There a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was writing a little note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome job, Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a motion on the floor. Mr. Valencia, seconded by Mr. Hollinshead. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you. Moving on to approval of job description, E. ELI Instructional Coach and Program Development, OSA. Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board. I'm Melissa Maxwell, the Classified Coordinator of HR. So I'm here this evening to bring back job description for ELI Instructional Coach of Program Development, TOSA. This job description was brought previous for discussion item, July 20th. We're looking for. Are there any questions on the job description?
I'm sorry, you said, are there any questions?
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions? Yes.
One of the questions that I brought up when this was first presented to us was the importance of having somebody with personal experience in terms of learning a second language. So I also spoke with, Dr. McDuffie about adding language around to the education and experience section, something along the adding language of saying personal experience, learning a second language preferred. I think particularly for a role like this, a dual language immersion specialist, somebody who understands, right, the challenges and the opportunities that come with learning a second language, I think will help that candidate stand out in terms of their ability to empathize with our students when they do struggle, because, that will happen. When you're learning a second or third language, it's tough. I had the privilege of traveling to Brazil, and I was a foreign exchange student there. I lived with a Brazilian family. And fortunately, I had Spanish as a decent foundation, but it's a whole other language. I would come back from classes exhausted, and it was great to be able to be reminded of how difficult it is for so many of our students when they come to us, right, speaking languages other than English, and how tough that can be. They call it a dual cognitive load, right? They're trying to learn the language and they're trying to learn the academic content at the same time. And so that's why I wanted to recommend adding language that says personal experience, learning a second language preferred.
Which part?
To the section that says education and experience. And I can repeat that phrase again, personal experience, learning a second language preferred.
It would seem to me that, number one, if they have the BCLAD credential, that speaks to a portion of that, but knowledge of academic vocabulary in program target language really addresses that issue, because if they know the academic vocabulary, my experience with someone who is bilingual who really is comfortable with the academic languages, that they were generally, their first language was Spanish. And so while it doesn't say personal experience, I personally feel like that, including that there, addresses that. That's just my opinion.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
On both of these, I felt like, and with this being a coach and development folk, I thought that in the ability portion, somebody might want to create, support, maintain a positive and inclusive team working environment. So there's, I think one of the things that we want to have this person do is be able to coalesce a team and create a positive working environment. And I guess that's supposed to be understood, but I also think it can also be delineated out specifically. I can send that to you.
Okay.
Rather than say it again and have you write it down. But I felt like that was something that would be inclusive in the abilities of both this and the upcoming description, just because I think that's a really important part of bringing together a formative group and creating a unified purpose.
Okay.
Just as a clarifying question, do you know if by having the BCLAD credential, does that automatically make the candidate bilingual, as Linda was alluding to earlier?
Yes. In order to get the BCLAD credential, you are bilingual.
Covered all the criteria to get that certification.
Yes.
Other comments or questions?
John, did you look at the portion under relationships?
I didn't. Well, I probably did, but did I miss something?
Well,
Is there a punctuation item?
no.
Just kidding.
I just think that sort of addresses
The I in team?
Okay. Well, that's all, it's student oriented. I'm talking about the staff, the people that they're working with.
No, the relationship piece, coach staff, coach parent, coach community.
Yeah, it's all student, but it's all related to the student. I'm talking about creating a working environment for the people that you're working with, differentiating that.
That'll be the thread, huh?
Indeed.
Together.
Clarification, are you suggesting adding like a C to the coach staff part, A, B, C?
No, abilities.
Under the abilities, gotcha.
Ability.
You have any-
It's a personal attribute. It's not something that's a specific definition.
do you have a specific description, like a?
I did, and I sent it to.
Yeah, it's on the way already.
I'm going to send it to Melissa. But essentially, under abilities, this is the bullet, create, support, and maintain a positive, inclusive team working environment.
Other clarifications, comments? That, I'm seeking a motion, please.
I'll move to approve the job description, DLI coach and program development TOSA as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Hollinshead and seconded by Mrs. Cordero. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Motion has carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Think you're up again for the next job description?
Yes, I am.
Right?
Okay, so the next one is also for the approval of the job description program specialist for P3 that was also brought for discussion during the July 20th board meeting. Are there any questions or comments on that one?
Same on ability.
Right, I have noted, yeah.
Perfect.
Both of those.
No, it's all very thorough.
Other comments or questions? Is there a motion, please?
I'll move to approve the job description program specialist for P3 as presented.
And
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. With that, motion has been made by Mr. Hollinshead, seconded by Mrs. Cordero. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Old G. Over to H. Can't turn my pages fast enough. Approval of provisional internship permits.
So tonight we're looking for the approval of 3 provisional internship permits. 2 of the positions are special ed positions at Libin and 1 special ed position at Oakley.
Speak up just a teeny bit or speak into the mic.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Thank you.
There, thank you.
Is that better? Would you like me to repeat it?
Would you please?
Sure, of course. So we have 3 provisional internship permits. We're looking for approval. 2 of the positions are special ed positions at Libin Elementary and 1 special ed position at Oak.
Questions or comments, please? That, I'll take a motion.
I'll motion that the Board of Education approve a provisional intern permits as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Valencia and seconded by Mrs. Cordero. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Melissa.
Moving over to discussion items. We have 45-day budget revision. Pages are getting stuck. Sorry.
Just real quick.
Thanks, Brian.
I believed that as we left the magnitude of the COVID-19 global pandemic, that we could start weaning the use of unprecedented.
Mhm.
And then we saw this budget, and it is providing an unprecedented amount of funding. Again, the legislature and really all of us caught off guard by how strong funding has come into the state, just based on the mechanics of how their budget receives its resources. So we see some pretty big changes in this budget. We saw some big funding in the budget as it was adopted, but the way that it has shifted with the approval of the legislature and signature of the governor, again, just some big dollar amounts working to provide services for students for learning. Things here to comply with the law and then provide you with those revisions that'll be coming to our budget based on the budget as it was signed.
Great, thank you, Mr. Beecher. So I'm here to present the 45-day budget revision. So what is that? So per ed code, no later than 45 days after the governor signs annual budget act, the school district shall make available for public review changes we made to our revenue and expenditures as a result of the budget act. So the governor signed the budget on June 27th, and I had it available for review on August 4th in the business office. So jumping straight into it, looking at the revenue side, our COLA did not change. Our COLA stayed the same at 6.56%, but the enacted budget did have an additional LCFF base funding increase of 6.28%. So we had our COLA plus an additional add-on of 6.28. It's a total of about 12.84%. And the wording when that was passed, it says the funds are intended to help school districts address ongoing physical pressures, staff shortages, and other operational needs. So what does that look like in dollars? So we have our LCFF revenue increase of $12.1 million. The way I come up with what our LCFF revenue is I use called an LCFF calculator. It's released by FCMAT. And they usually release the calculator before the 45-day budget revision. But there were so many changes in the budget, they've delayed that. So I've had to go back to the calculator I used in May and make some assumptions in there, kind of come up with this estimate as you see right now, the $12.1 million increase in LCFF revenue. That's made up of $3.5 million for supplemental and concentration grant and $8.5 million of base dollars. We also do have an increase in our lottery dollars, of about $140,000. We also have home to school transportation allowance. So starting in 22-23, the state increased funding home to school transportation, and this is ongoing funding. We have received since 2013-14, every year we do receive $528,000, just a flat dollar amount. So now the state is pouring more money into transportation, and the dollar amount we're going to receive, it's a calculation. So we take 60% of our transportation cost, and then we subtract out the $528 they give us. So we're looking at about a $2.4 million. So our transportation budget is about $5 million. 60% of that is that 2.9. Subtract out the 528. How you get the 2.4. Also, our expanded learning opportunities program, there was just an estimated change in the funding of about $200,000 decrease. Currently, we rely on School Services of California to get this estimated dollar amount. The state hasn't released the allocations yet, so we do rely on school services, and it can change over time when they calculate what they think it might be.
Brian, if I could jump into revenue really quickly. Hearing your description regarding the way that revenues were estimated for LCFF, I want to make sure the board is aware that every year at this time, we're estimating that revenue. It's not like this is the first time Brian's coming to you with that estimate. The description he provided was the tool he normally uses isn't necessarily ready to go forward, but we always estimate at this time. Funding amount that can change, and then obviously the dollars are driven primarily by ADA, which we haven't even started school yet. So we have no idea what that number is going to be, but we have a good idea. But it will. So I just want to make sure that the board's aware that we always have estimates. In addition, he's describing what the calculation, a circumstance of that estimate.
That's also based on that 3-year Check the ADA figures that's based on that 3-year average or whatever they allowed for now.
3-year rolling average. So
Yeah.
for ADA, you take the higher of current year, prior year, or the 3-year rolling average. And right now our highest ADA is our 3-year rolling average. Yeah.
So I find it astonishing that we get this amazing 60% increase toward our transportation expenditures when we can't find enough bus drivers to transport our students. Uber, can we do Uber?
It is coincidental that the state had this incredible economic upturn this year, and there is this shortfall in driver. But it's always a tool. But at this point, it's unrelated. See how it goes as districts realize they have this additional funding, create incentives, drivers. That's going to be an ongoing conversation.
And just to let you know, we have talked about Uber. We've had a conversation.
Okay.
Uber XL.
I don't think we have a taxi service anymore, do we? Get the old taxi cabs out. Oh, my.
All right, moving on. So I'm going to stay on the revenue side. So at budget adoption, which I created in May, the state said we're going to give you one-time unrestricted dollars of $22.3 million. When the Budget Act was approved at the end of June, what they did was they took that $22.3 million of unrestricted dollars, took it away from us, but then they gave us back $42.7 million of restricted dollars.
Of course.
And these are one-time dollars. We'll make sure we're clear on that. And they broke that $42.7 million up into 2 block grants. And the first one is the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant, $9.9 million. We have until 2026 to spend the dollars. We do have to create a spending plan approved by the board. The uses are professional development, instructional materials, operational costs, and COVID-19 related supplies. This one is restricted. This one is a little less restrictive than the next one I'm going to talk about. For example, the state said operational costs. It's a broad there. So one example they gave was you can spend it for your pension costs, pay your PERS and STIRS. The other block grant is the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, $32.7 million. We have until 2028 to spend the funds. And that lists out 6 uses there. Increase or stabilize instructional learning time, decrease or stabilize staff to pupil ratios, closing learning gaps, pupil supports to address other barriers to learning, instructional for credit deficient students, and additional academic services. I did want to talk a little bit more about budgeting the revenue and expenditures. So at budget adoption, that $22.3 million of unrestricted dollars, we did budget those dollars on the revenue side. But since there was no requirements of how to spend them or plan, we didn't budget that $22.3 million on the expenditure side. We just threw it into revenue at budget adoption. Now with these 2 restricted programs, totaling $42.7 million, we did budget the revenue, and then we also budgeted the expenditures. For our restricted programs, we do budget the revenue and expenditures fully for the year. One reason we budget on the expenditure side for the 9.9 and 32.7 is we have received a framework of what it can be spent on, but we still do have some questions on the CD website. The allocations aren't up yet. This is an estimate. There's no examples of spending plans or frequently asked questions or anything like that. So we're waiting for the CD to update their website with this information here.
So with these time limits then, are they going to be reflected on future budgets as a separate item that can roll over year to year?
Yeah, so these are going to be restricted. The state has only released part of the budget code, the resource code. And I still don't know if they're allowed to have an ending fund balance or we have to consider it as unearned revenue. But for example, the arts, music, and instructional materials grant, $10 million. If this year we spend 4 million of it, then obviously the following year I'll budget 6 million of expenditures for that block grant.
And then the related question is, I would imagine that the state wouldn't want, or I don't, maybe they don't care, that people or districts, are spending this much later in this time frame or timeline. So are there intermediate dates or use by kind of?
No timeline of you need to use 20% by this time and another 20% by this time. There are reporting requirements. I know on the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, I don't know if it's quarterly or annually of we have to report how we spend the dollars. But there's no like benchmarks up until 2028 of.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, with that amount of time to spend the money, it would seem like a quarterly report would be challenging.
Yes, I'll call them our COVID dollars or ESSER dollars. Those 16 different buckets I've talked about of $90 million of code dollars. We've had 2, 3, 4 years of timeline to spend those dollars. I do have quarterly reporting that I have to do on those dollars. So we'll see what the CDE website says.
I mean, because that's 6 school years that we have to spend that. So. Okay.
A question
just an observation, I guess.
A question that I have is under the list for the discretionary block grant, one of the bullet points says diverse book collections and culturally relevant texts in English and pupils' home language. Are those suggestions from the state as examples of the way we can use the funds, or are those ideas of what our district staff have determined are appropriate use of the funds?
So those 4 bullet points for the uses come directly from slide from School Services of California. They gave us this information and I copied it exactly how they gave it to us. And like I said, there's no FAQs or this information is not on the CD website. So I had to rely on School Services to get the information.
That's a really exciting thing to spend resources on. I know that's something that we've discussed already is diversifying our library book collections, enhancing the diversity of the curriculum so that it reflects the diversity of our state and of our community. Another bullet point stood out to me was the one above it that says professional development and instructional materials aligned to best practices for improving school culture, digital literacy, physical education, and learning through play. That sounds like that's a lot of really exciting opportunities to provide our staff with really solid professional development that will be engaging and help take improve the literacy of our students and things like that. So I'm looking forward to conversations around how we're going to use those fundings effectively to, improve the professionalism of our staff or enhance their abilities, and also for our students as well. Very exciting.
Great. So moving on, now we're going to look at the expenditure side, changes in our budget on the expenditure side. So we are budgeting the supplemental and concentration grant dollars, the $3.5 million. We are decreasing by $200,000 our expanded learning opportunities program expenditure because our allocation went down. And like I just mentioned, we're budgeting all of the 32.7 and the 9.9 million for those 2 block grants in our budget right now. So doing that, this is what it looks like. Line A5, total revenue, we have an increase of almost $35 million. And like I mentioned, that is the lottery, the 6% transportation, reimbursement, those block grants. So all that together is about 35 million. Down below is the changes in the expenditures. So line B9, we have an increase in our expenditures of $46 million. Then you go to the very bottom 8 for E, So at our budget adoption, we budgeted deficit spending of 4.2 million. And now at the 45-day budget revision, deficit spending of 15.4. So it's an increase of about $11.1 million. So lastly, what to watch for: economic momentum. Are we in recession? Some people might think that. Where are we going to go from here? I'll be back in September with our unaudited actuals. So I'm in the process of closing the books for last fiscal year. And I'll present where we ended up for the year. And then our first interim report is due in December. So with that, I can answer any additional questions.
Questions, clarifications? With that, I acknowledge the review of the impact of the 2022-23 budget on the district's adopted budget as presented. Thank you very much. Next item has been pulled, so that brings us to board superintendent's reports. Would like to start. Cordero?
First, I'd like to go first and just say to everyone here and everyone who's in the audience and anyone else who might be interested, yippee! I'm excited and welcome to a brand new school year. I know there's excitement in the air and probably a lot of nervousness. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the business, the first day of school always causes butterflies. I don't care. Even I get butterflies just knowing. Welcome to our significant number of new employees to our district this year. It was a wonderful opportunity last week to meet and mingle just a little bit. On their second day of their new teacher week, which while I haven't heard from a lot, but a few that I happened to know that it was a very worthwhile week. It kind of spread out the overload into a little bit smaller chunks to digest. And there is a great deal of anticipation for an exciting school year ahead of us. So welcome to everyone, and thank you to our teaching and learning department for providing the opportunities for our new employees and for our returning employees on Monday. It's I just know in my heart it's going to be a great year. And I really appreciated the opportunity to be around people in person. That was just exciting in and of itself. So before the summer session ended, I did have an opportunity to visit our sites that were all but one of them. I didn't make it to one. I think Jimenez I didn't make it back to, but I made it there during the first session and got to visit in a few classrooms and see not only the academic program in the morning that I heard a lot of wonderful things about, but the enrichment activities in the afternoon and the specialists and the various specialized programs that were offered to our students that they were very excited to participate in. I was a little bit surprised. Did not seem to be the number of students present that I had expected, but since I know transportation probably was part of the limitation, but you know, when it push comes to shove, sometimes kids just need to have time to play and be with their friends. So it was a very busy summer for many of our teachers, and I'm hopeful and excited for, I don't want to use the word normal,
Yeah, we're not normal.
because I don't think we'll ever see what we think of as normal again, but for a year filled with promise, a year filled with promise. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you to everyone who has really helped to make this all happen. And it takes everybody, every single person, to make sure that our classrooms are ready and that our teachers have what they need for their students, and that our offices have what they need to help parents. And today coming in, there was a parent coming in looking for someone. She thought she needed to register her student. They'd moved and wasn't sure what to do. And thankfully, one of our interpreters walked through and was able to help with that. So I expect we'll have a big crowd tomorrow. So thank you to everyone.
There's not a whole lot to expand on that. I felt very similarly to it being at the new teacher beginnings of that week. I had kind of stumbled upon it the day before. And was very impressed with the goings on, and then we were specifically involved on the second day to like I was mentioning earlier, that the face, just to see their faces when we were addressing the different teachers, or the new teachers, quite a diverse group. I mean, age, everything, but all very engaged, and also seemingly kind of more, maybe a little bit more at ease and forming some relationships already. And I think that's going to be, hopefully a real great aspect of that, having a whole week is that sense of coming together and coalescing and finding, common ground and experiences, so that that first week isn't maybe quite as nerve-wracking as anticipated. But I also have spoken to some of the teachers, veteran teachers in the district, and administrators, and I would agree, there's a different sense of excitement. There's a lot of positivity in the air. So I just hope that perpetuates itself throughout the school year for everybody.
Okay.
I definitely want to say thank you to all of our school staff. There's so many staff to name, our maintenance staff, our custodial staff, our cafeteria staff. I noticed at San Manuel High School, where I'm at, the frenzy, the anxiety, even, if you will, and so I ask that folks be patient with each other and with themselves, also be graceful, because I know how stressful it can be. Prior to this board meeting myself, I'm cleaning up my classroom. Why? Because my carpets were graciously cleaned up by our, maintenance staff, and so that my students could come, back to a nice clean carpet, and those things make a big difference. And so I want to, thank all of our staff at all levels for their hard work preparing, for the first day. I also want to, take a moment to just remind all of our staff at all levels that we make a big impact on our young people, especially those young people that do not believe in themselves quite yet, of which I was a part of when I was a student at El Camino. I didn't see myself as college material at the time. I'm a first-generation college student from a working class community, from an immigrant community. And it was teachers like Ms. Pryor at El Camino who took me under her wing during PE classes. It was custodial staff like Luis who would take me to 5K races when I was in 7th and 8th grade. These are just, adults at our school, some of which are still there, that go way above and beyond. And even just a regular school day is tough enough for our staff. And so as I reflect on those adults that that really just believed in me and people like me and youth like me. I just really want to just say thank you and just remind us that we have such a wonderful profession that we're all a part of. It is really hard work. It is stressful work. But I know that working together, supporting each other, having grace with each other when we slip and fall will make a big difference for our young people. And so I just want to say that, especially in light of the fact that at Santa Maria High School, they had sort of a recognition of alumni of the staff. And there was about 30 staff that lined up out of our plus 100 teachers that are alumni. And they shared stories about particular teachers in their life that, made them believe in themselves. And it was really special because I'm in the same line now with students that I had in the classroom that are now my colleagues, right? And then I was in that same line with people that I, had, in my life when I was a student there. And so it's just, I feel really blessed to be a part of this profession and really, really excited to continue to support our young people despite all the challenges that we're going to continue to face, but excited about, the prospect of having a wonderful school year. I also wanted to take a moment to just recognize our club advisors, our coaches, our field trip organizers, all those of you that organize those extracurricular activities, because many of the teachers mentioned how critical that was, those opportunities to connect with adults outside of the classroom and in the classroom. So thank you to all of you that continue to do that for our students, which is often like uncompensated work, right? Often underappreciated work. And clearly we often don't do this work for all the thank yous that we get on a daily basis, but know that, you all are appreciated. And I also wanted to recognize our staff that attended the My Cop Night in Oaxaca event that just happened a couple of days ago. It was wonderful to see some of our district staff there supporting My Cop, which is an instrumental organization in providing supports to our immigrant community, our indigenous families. And I believe we also even contract with MyCop for some of our interpretation services, if I'm not mistaken. So I was really happy to see Dr. McDuffie's leadership in inviting our staff, to attend the event. Ms. Cordero was there as well. And we had a wonderful time, learned a great deal, also heard some very inspirational stories from students that attended this district that are now going off to Cal Poly. Students that haven't even started their freshman year are already thinking about starting organizations to support the next generation of students. So those are the types of students that we have among us. Even the student that's maybe not so much paying attention in class, even that student that, is getting in fights, those are the students that end up becoming teachers like my peers. And so please continue to believe in us. Please continue to love on us, even when we're not on our best behavior as young people. And lastly, I also wanted to say that a community member reached out to me because there was some confusion around our new election process. So as many of you know, we're now in district elections for the November elections. And there was some confusion around, hey, so if I live on this street, do I get to vote for a candidate? Or so I was reaching out to Dr. McDuffie to see what we can do to educate our community with some type of workshop to say, hey, this is how the new electoral process is going to work. If you live in, this part of town, this is, you'll be supporting, a candidate or multiple candidates run. And so just something so that our community knows what's going on, because even this person that, that reached out to me, they said, hey, I was trying to go on the website and I couldn't really figure things out. So it sounds like there's, a potential need for some support for our community to be educated on our new election process. So I just wanted to encourage our district to consider, putting on some type of workshop so our families can feel like well-educated voters in our community. Thank you very much.
But he's been busy. I do want to thank the people who put on the Jump Start part of the curriculum. Did get to visit that, had a little granddaughter jumping around at the Jump Start program, so it was very interesting. She thought she was going to college because she had put on her college shoes. She was on her way, so she was happy on Friday because school's all done, so she finished school. Her mother had to break it to her. She's going to go again on Monday, but I didn't get into that one. I also want to say that all of you out there do fabulous modeling. You do a great job in what you do. Dr. McDuffie did a great job, a wonderful job, modeling his life story. And many of the beginning teachers at the at the in-service that they attended decided that that would be an excellent way to start their classroom. Many of them had conversations about that as I was moving around and visiting other sites and taking supplies that I don't need anymore to people who do need them. So I thank you for that, Dr. McDuffie, because that brought the true spirit of relationships. Sometimes we speak so often about our stories that we forget how important it is to share that story in a way that is pleasant and inviting and just telling. It tells a good story. And the relationship that happens begins to melt down some of those walls for your students, because then you are the person that then becomes, that conversation piece to help get more out of everyday things that we don't think are important. Everything is important. I mean, just to Eva, my granddaughter, having those Velcro crayon shoes that she calls college shoes are very important because she can put the darn things on herself. Just that accomplishment of doing something for yourself cannot be said enough. So I thank everybody, because everybody does a little something and they don't know it until somebody comes and tells them that it was important. And I thank you for that, Melissa. She had a little message for me today. And you don't know that. And keep doing the positive. And it's so appreciative, so appreciated too. We can't say it enough. I mean, we really, really appreciate all who are doing what needs to be done. It does take a village.
I had one thing, Vita, and this is a request,
Okay.
Dr. McDuffie. We have talked in the past about involving student leadership at the school year to try and reach out to the sites that have those student leadership groups, junior highs and the elementaries, and somehow work to have them part of this on a regular basis, be it as student student board members, maybe from the junior high on once a quarterly basis or something like that. But
Like LCAP when we have the students there too.
So you have just read my mind. This is something that I spoke with Ms. Dutra about this morning, and usually I know what's on your mind. But we want to establish a district leadership student team. And so we are developing that where we have similar to board member, but this leadership team will, I want to be crafted so that they learn about what the district does. We have speakers that come in to talk about have board members come in and talk about their role, to have them live meetings as well. So that is something that I just to develop and have for this year for our board meetings. Yeah. Okay, so I will take it from here. Thank you so much, Vice President Flores, board members. It is the eve before the first day of the 2022-23 school year. It's tomorrow. And I hope that everyone, of course, is at home getting ready for a good night's sleep. I know that I won't be able to sleep tonight.
sounds like Christmas.
Yes, right? In anticipation of a busy day tomorrow. As I've made visits around to the district to schools, I know that all of our staff members are ready to begin the new school year with our students and our families. And Ms. Cordero, I don't want this to be a normal year. I want this to be an extraordinary year. And so that is exactly, I'm confident that we will have that and we will do that. All of our district and office administrators and teachers on special assignment are assigned to support our schools tomorrow in person in any way needed. Cabinet and myself will be out visiting schools throughout the day tomorrow. Please know that I understand the burden of this shortage that we have in bus drivers, and we don't take it lightly. And the burden that's put on our families and our students in our schools. We'll continue to work on ways that we can assist schools and families in our community during this present situation, and provide additional support where we can, and continue to recruit. If anybody knows anyone who wants to serve our students as a bus driver, have them call the superintendent's office. I will direct them where they need to go so that we can fill these positions as much and as quickly as possible. Also, I've had the privilege of speaking with several groups of district employees as they gather to bond, learn, and train and motivate each other for the new year. We had a leadership institute. We had with certificated and classified managers. I talked to them about the power of words, the power of kindness, and the power of developing relationships, and moving towards that. Addressing the new Teachers Week, definitely something that I enjoy doing. And a couple of meet and greets at the district office with staff members here at Sousa. And just this morning, I was out with Carlos Murtas and spoke to his food staff, service members, thanking them for the work that they do, that we value them and what they do for our students. So thank you, Carlos, for the work that you're doing there. Our office managers, I'll be attending their meeting later on this, I don't know whether it's this week or next week. It's been a very positive experience putting faces to names and sharing with everyone a little bit about me and who I am as an educator. I just continue to just feel thankful for being here. And so I want to thank you. Today, this afternoon, I had the pleasure to attend the Siesta Fiesta put on by SMEA. We had a great time. We had cabinet was there as well. Had a great time meeting so many of our teachers at all of our sites. It was kind of hot today. Maybe because I was standing in the sun, but one of the teachers had an umbrella, and Christina. Thank you, Christina.
Of course, Christina.
She had an umbrella. And she was, she saw that I was in the heat, kind of shaking hands, and she stood there for like 5-10 minutes, just keeping me in the shade. And I want to thank, they're very gracious. And I really appreciate the gifts as well. They provided me with a gift basket. So I'm just very grateful. I look forward to getting out to school sites and meeting with teachers, along with our students now. We have students that are coming back to us. So I want to thank everyone, and I believe that we are going to have a great school year. So thank you very much. Thank you, Vice President Flores.